What's going on, trading card game players? Figs here with Figs Form, bringing you guys my first place deck profile. So I was able to participate in the 1K event. We have one just about every month at Syracuse, one of our locals, and I was able to do very well. Again, I was able to take first, second place. This time I split for first and second, but I did play out for the positioning to see how well I could do. Was able to 2-0 my opponent in the final round, so I did take first place. Deck was very fun, very consistent. I wanted to bring you guys the list. I haven't played, Phantom Knight Adventure in a while. And this one I especially was abusing, of course, Scythe, because we are able to Scythe lock our opponent just about every game depending on our opening hand. Very consistent. I mean, normally you just need to see one name in order to be able to set up the Scythe lock consistently without having to use your Brave Engine. But ideally, it played out very well. I had some very fun matchups. I played against a couple of runic matchups. I was able to play against Tyr, Despia. I played against Dragonlink. That was actually my one loss in Swiss. And then he was my opponent in the finals, which is one of the reasons why I also split. He was playing I think 18 hand traps maybe, along with the Brave Engine. So it definitely was pretty interesting. It's very difficult to play against that kind of matchup, especially when your opponent has that many hand traps. And it's really contingent. You can usually play through it, but it's very contingent on what you draw and how many names you draw. If you are able to draw one or two names, it is easy to play through hand traps. But if you're unable to do so, then it gets a little difficult. And of course, in Swiss, I had lost a die roll. And he just had so many hand traps on the clapback after creating a board. And then same thing going second, only seeing Brave Engine and not being able to see anything else to play makes it very difficult. So if we're not able to see a name, we're generally not able to Scythe lock our opponent. Setting up Brave isn't absolutely the worst, especially if you see Fogblade, but unfortunately without seeing names, you're not really able to play the game too much. But yeah, the deck performed very well. Wanted to go over some different things and some combos, of course. I do have a full combo video already in regards to how you Scythe lock with the normal build of Phantom Knight Adventure. But I'll show you a quick little thing as I go through the cards on how I was able to Scythe lock. Again, it's very simple and very easy with this general build. I do think this is better. I did play Ophion previously for a while, and unfortunately in the current meta, he's not the greatest. He is pretty cool against Tyr because of course it does shut down things like Instant Fusion and Kit Kalos. But unfortunately, with Splight running around, Ophion is not as strong. And, a lot of the other rogue decks can generally play around it as well, like Exosister and things like that. So you don't already want to play, a not as good, boss card or ending card as you would in a situation where you can just kind of stop your opponent from playing the game altogether. But yeah, Scythe lock is very good, especially with everyone playing Dark Ruler No More. Other people are adapting to other board breakers and hand traps now that the meta is kind of shifting as we're coming close to a new format. So yeah, you will see people start playing Droplet and things like that more often. But Scythe lock definitely works, especially for those people who haven't adapted and are still copying a lot of the big lists that you see everyone playing online. Dark Ruler No More is still a very important card in the meta because of Splight. So it is easy for us to be able to Scythe lock, especially when we set up Griffin. Obviously we have that protection and being able to Scythe lock our opponent. So let me go ahead and get into the deck. I played 41 cards, definitely very consistent, and we'll go over each one and go over and see how we were able to do this. And as I always say, this is my formula or my take on the deck. If you have any concerns in regards to questioning on the deck, the build, how I did certain things, go ahead and comment in the comment section below. We'll go over it. That way I can get you guys to understand how my formula works for me. And then of course, if you have any changes, definitely let me know. We can make some changes as well. So let's go over the list. And we'll start with the PK engine. All right, so let's go ahead and start with the Phantom Knight lineup. We've got ourselves 3 Torn Scale, 3 Boots, 2 Cloak, 2 of the Ragged Gloves and the Stained, and then of course we've got our 2 Fogblade, 1 Wing and 1 Shade Brigandine. I think this is obviously the standard lineup when you're playing the Phantom Knight's Adventure. I think that this is the most common lineup and the most consistent lineup as well. This is obviously very important. It gives us an additional body whenever we're trying to set up our Scythe lock or any other end board that we're trying to make. So this is very detrimental. I think that you don't change any of this, and it's very common, very standard. Not much to say about that. Then of course we got our Brave Engine or Adventure. We've got our 3 Water Enchantress. I did play the 1 Illegal Knight and the 1 Griffin. And then of course our Rights, our Adventure, and our Dracoback. Illegal Knight was actually pretty insane, especially against the fusion matchups, because they don't really have an out to this. The only thing they can do is go into Muddy. That stops them from being targeted. But even then, it's like as soon as they activate Muddy, you can target whatever's on the board and bounce it back. Then also, of course, this is great for playing around Dark Ruler No More. If you don't need the Omni and you're not setting up Scythe Lock, then you're able to just kind of keep this in hand and wait for your opponent to make a play during their turn and be able to, use the Illegal Knight. Sometimes what I also did was I set up Shade Brigandine with the trap for the Break Sword, so that way I can bring it back, pop something, and they know obviously that I have that set up. So sometimes they'll Dark Ruler, and then I'll have access to Illegal Knight to stop their plays. So this is a very good lineup. Obviously, wouldn't change any of this. It's very standard, and then until of course they hit it on the ban list or something. Very standard lineup for Brave. Then we'll go over my extenders. I did play the 1 Speedward Terratop in the Taki Tom board. This is actually very clutch. Against my Tearlament matchup, I actually was able to open up this as well as Call By both games 1 and 2. So yeah, I mean, my obviously starting board was very insane. They did have the Veiler and the Nib, so Gamma was able to stop the Nib, and then of course the Call By stopped the Veiler. But yeah, this was very insane, very good. Obviously, it's a great because it's a 1-card play. Allows us to go straight into Cherubini or into any other level 3 or link that we need to as well. So we have those two. Then of course we also have our our Psychics that we use with E-Telly. We only just played the 2 just because we obviously wanted to have additional extenders. We've also got our Burning Abyss monsters, our of course honorary Phantom Knights. Yeah, I mean obviously when you're setting up Scythe Lock, you want to have that additional body. So sending Graph to get Sir obviously helps, and then also we are setting Barbar, so it allows us to have access to additional resources for time. And then of course we have our Artifact Scythe. This is obviously our main play. Anytime we win the die roll, it's the first thing that we're going for, and then we're attempting to Scythe Lock during the draw phase. Go over spells. We have our 2 Emergency Teleport, our 1 Call By, Rhoda, Foolish, 2 Pot of Prosperity. I definitely think Prosperity is amazing. It's a very good card. In this deck, it's a little bit hard to resolve just because of the fact that your extra deck is so tight, and most of the resources in your extra deck you definitely do need. So playing Prosperity can be a little difficult, but it does create consistency in the deck. A lot of your opening hands, if you're not seeing a name, this gets you to a name even if you're going 3 deep because you are playing so many. And then of course, after on games 2 and 3, seeing side cards is also very amazing. So this being able to go 6 deep in certain situations where you absolutely need something in order to play the game, this allows you to get there. So yeah, it's more of a consistency card. It definitely is optional. You don't need to play it, but since it got reprinted, obviously it's more easily accessible. So we do want to see everyone playing as much as possible. Then of course we have 3 Droplet, best board breaker in the game in my opinion. Dark Ruler is nice, but this card literally stops your opponent's board and still allows you to OTK them in the same turn. That's why I've always liked Droplets over Dark Ruler No More, just because the fact that, a deck like this, you are able to play everything out of the graveyard, so it really doesn't matter what you're sending. But also being able to turn your opponent's cards off and then being able to kill them in the same turn is very important, because this deck just kills very easily, especially with the Brave and the Phantom Knight engine. So that was it for the main board. As I said, 41. Definitely, it was nice. Everything was in here was nice. I don't think I changed anything. The only thing, if you obviously want to change something, would be the Speedway Terratop and the Taki Tom board. Those are really the most flexible spots in the deck, in my opinion. I feel like everything else is very necessary. So let's go over the extra deck. We'll go over our ranks first. So I played the 1 Leviair, 2 Break Sword, the Time Thief Redoer, and then Downward Zeus. So we wanted to have access to obviously our level 3s. This allows us to recycle. Also can be used with Taki Tom board if we have an extender. Same thing with Griffin. If we just have him, we don't have the Terratop, then we're able to use Taki Tom board off the Leviair to summon. And like I said, same thing with Griffin. We want to have 2 Break Swords, of course. One is for the combo, one is for clearing your opponent's board. So obviously we use the first one to do our combo for Scythe Lock. And then after that, going into the next turn, if we need another one to start clearing our opponent's board, because they said stuff, then obviously we have access to 2. Time Thief Redoer is actually our best main option in ending boards, because you don't want to have Dagda and you don't want to have, you don't want to have Dagda and you don't want to have IP Masquerena locking down your link zones, because you need to have access to one of them for when you revive Breaksword into one of the arrows. So Time Thief allows you to be able to basically remove himself off the board and have access to whatever you need on the board in terms of space. And then Downward Zeus, of course, is for when we Droplet. If we are in a situation where we can't kill our opponent, but we are able to clear the board, Downward Zeus means that we end up having his effect twice. So that was it for the XYZs. Links, of course, we've got Cherubini, best one in the extra deck. This obviously allows us to set up everything that we want to and need to. Dagda for our Scythe, IP Masquerena as another option for end board. Gloomy for link climbing. This is very good against people who de-shifter you. If you are in a situation where you get de-shifted, you are able to still play the game and make Bardiche in certain situations. and do as much as you can in setting up. Obviously, if you open up Fog Blade, setting up Bardiche with Fog Blade is actually really nice because the next turn you don't have to do anything but basically go to main and activate Bardiche's effect. But this is also very good because this is a very dark, heavy meta. Unicorn, great for IP and link climbing. Then, of course, we have our access code for killing, our Appaloosa for setting up board, our good old Bardiche, and then I went with the Underworld Goddess. So this is probably the only flex spot. It actually came in clutch quite a few times. You're able to take your opponent's cards that are, obnoxious or that you have a hard time dealing with, and you're able to get rid of them. This deck floats very, very well. So obviously, being able to go into things like Cherubini with Sir. So use Cherubini, Sir, one other name, and then of course your opponent's monster. You're able to just basically get back Cherubini and then still make Bardiche. So it's really nice. This, as I said, is a very big flex spot. You're able to pretty much put anything in here. One change that I am going to make moving forward, I didn't make Downard as much as I wanted to over the Zeus, but I do want to keep access to Zeus. I think Downard will end up actually being Dweller, because you are actually able to make Dweller in this deck very easily with Shade Burgadine and the Stain Greaves. There's quite a few situations where you're able to just pretty much pull these two off, and you can do it as a regular combo too, which Dweller obviously is very insane in this meta right now because of Tearlament. So you're able to pretty much just, make Bardiche, set the trap with Bardiche effect, and then either send Cloak to add Stain Greaves to hand, flip the trap, and then obviously summon the Stain Greaves as a level 4 and make Dweller. Or you can send it to grave if you have a Phantom Knight in hand, and then banish it, summon the Phantom Knight with a level higher, and then make your level 4. So you do have access to level 4s. It's not as ideal, of course, if you're looking to do certain combos, but it does give you access to Dweller, which is very good in this meta right now. So I definitely think that's something to consider moving forward. I think, moving forward, I will definitely be playing Dweller in there. And then let's go ahead and go over the side deck. Side deck was very important. It actually helped me out a lot having access to certain cards. So I went with 2 Dark Ruler No More. Obviously, Splight is still a thing, and Droplet does deal with most of it, but we do have to get rid of a lot of resources, especially if they see a pretty cracked hand. They are able to end on Toad, IP Masquerena, as well as Elf. So obviously, Droplet for 3 plus Droplet 4 cards out of hand can be a bit much. If we can just turn off our board with Dark Ruler, then hit them with Evenly, we get the most value and resource out of it because then they don't get the recycle on Toad. So yeah, I definitely think that this was appropriate. This is also very good for back row decks. It helps a lot being able to banish everything so things don't come back. Then we have our 3 Artifact Sanctum and 1 Lancia. I definitely think this is very nice. I didn't see it as much as I wanted to, but the idea of playing this means that if we're going first, we don't have to worry about going down the Dagna line, especially since a lot of times, people are sighting in hand traps, so we're probably going to get nibbed. It's nice to be able to, try to set up your board. If you are able to set up a board, not go for Dagda, and then set up Artifact Sanctum. Or a lot of times what I did was I'd set up the Dagda, a Dagda line for Scythe, have Artifact Sanctum set for Lancia, and then as soon as they draw, I would just activate Artifact Sanctum to bring out Lancia. So as soon as Lancia hits the board, they can't call by, they can't DD Crow, they're not able to stop that in any way. I can't get even lead. So this is very nice to have access to. Or if you hard draw it, obviously you can just keep it in hand and then use it whenever they try to evenly you or call by or DD Crow. Because obviously DD Crow is a very heavily played card in the meta right now. So having access to this just makes it much easier. As I said, we're doing Bar. We wanted to have an option for time. It never came up. I never went into time, so I didn't have to worry about it. But this is nice because obviously this burns for a maximum of 900. So yeah, it definitely is necessary. Then we've got our 3 Cosmic Cyclones, the clutch card that I had in my sideboard for the Runic matchups, because we want to have access to as much back row hate as possible. So we also went with Harpies and Red Reboot. These help you deal with the Runic matchup. Not so much the Harpies. I didn't side it in against Runic because of the extra deck monsters. They protect all cards from being destroyed, so this doesn't work as much. But most situations, Cosmic Cyclone and Dracoback pretty much deals with that matchup in general. So you are able to usually OTK them. All my matches against Runic, I actually ended up OTKing my opponent on turn 1. I lost a die roll in both, and then just pretty much just go off and kill them because, it's hard to deal with a board, especially with Brave, because if they don't have the quick play to destroy a special summon monster, the token just sits on the board and, gives me access to Dracoback, which can bounce to a field card. I get access to Griffin, of course, and so it makes it very difficult for them to be able to stop things if they don't have the ability to get rid of the token. And then everything after that is pretty much protected because Cherubini, under his arrows, allow Southside cards from being destroyed. So, of course, they can't even destroy special summon monsters in the arrows. But yeah, definitely think it's important to have as much sideboard option as possible. Of course, mine is a thing, which is why we love the Brave Engine, because Dracoback just deals with that as well. But also having access to this is good as well. But yeah, this was definitely a very consistent list. I really enjoyed it a lot. For those of you who don't know in terms of the combo, I can give you a quick little rundown just so you know ideally how we're doing the combo. So we'll start from the beginning real quick. It's a very quick and easy one, of course. So generally, any two names, let's say we have an Italy, and the first, a name is fine. So Italy, these two make a level 3. We're able to go into Cherubini. Cherubini will send Graf and Sir, make Bardiche. Then of course Sir will bring back Cherubini. Then we have access to two names. We'll have the Torn Scales in the Grave. We'll set the trap, send a monster, activate the trap. This will go into Dagda. This will go into Dagda, and then we'll banish, Cloak to get Silent Boots, bring this back, pitch a card, trigger Dagda, get our Scythe, and then we're going to overlay the boots in this to make Breaksword a pop, bring back 2 dudes, and then we're pretty much making Time Thief. And then of course if we need the card off of any of the monsters underneath Time Thief, like the boots, we'll just banish it until the end phase, and then obviously we'll have our slots open. Otherwise, generally we'll just keep it on the board. As soon as your opponent goes to standby, activate his effect, and then hopefully you can get a draw from a spell. If not, you banish it, and then you'll activate whatever trap card you have engraved. So generally, whatever you're pitching off of Torn Scales, you'll either just send a trap directly, or you'll end up adding off of boots the Phantom Knight Wing. You can activate Wing on any of your monsters. You'll have the Brave Engine on board to protect. Generally, what I'll do is I'll do a Phantom Knight Wing on the Griffin. That way, if my opponent has something to respond with, and I want to protect my Griffin from Gamma, then I'm able to obviously protect it from Gamma. And then I just Phantom Knight Wing, and then, banish it, summon Breaksword, pop. So yeah, I mean, pretty simple combo, and honestly, you're able to do it every single time. Just seeing one name makes the entire combo live, just because of the fact that Bardiche is a hard +2. So you're able to get names to the grave, and you're able to get a body. So you basically get 2 bodies ideally, just off of the effect of Shade or of Bardiche. So yeah, very, very simple combo. And like I said, I do it every single time. I mean, all I need to see is one name usually. And you can even do it without seeing one name, but it is quite difficult and does require you to have to use your Brave Engine, unfortunately, to do it, which I try not to do. Sometimes you're in a situation where if your opponent hand traps you and you have to use Griffin, then a lot of times you just use the token and some other monster to make Dagda, since he doesn't require any effect monsters, just monsters with different names. But yeah, so that's about it. I definitely had a good time playing the deck. I definitely think this is the most consistent deck or build if you're looking to play Phantom Knights at the moment. Because it does offer you everything that you do need in order to be consistent with the deck. But yeah, this is my take or my formula on the deck. Hope you guys enjoy. Definitely like and subscribe. And as always, jump in the comments and let me know what you guys think. Let me know of your ideas as well. I definitely am waiting for a ban list. I really hope that they do shake things up a little bit. Give us more options of things to play with the Phantom Knight lineup. Otherwise, as I said, Scythe definitely does, carry you through a lot of your games, especially when you're in the die roll. Kind of guarantees your game 1, and then your game 2 and 3 are really just contingent on what you're able to draw out of your sideboard and what helps you and whatnot. So definitely appreciate you guys checking the video out. As I said, like and subscribe, and take it easy.